go, ha. Oh, that's a man, yeah. Because you cannot differentiate between a Palestinian and Ukrainian because they've both got human rights. Aren't we again changing the law and the rules to fit minorities? It's not safe. And that's Manchester.
Yeah.
London's a lot worse.
London's a lot worse.
So you're telling me that these black and brown people need white people to save them? So are you saying we're better than them? Is that what you're saying? And it's why do English people, British people, hate themselves?
Ladies and gentlemen, if you have found us, welcome to the resistance. And welcome to the Mayor and I, Lindsay Khan, and Nick Buckley, MBE, mayoral candidate, parliamentary candidate, political activist, agitator.
And cheeky chappy.
The cheeky chappy. Episode 81 of the Mayor and I.
82.
82. We're losing count. So
Yeah.
Welcome, Nick.
What are we going to do when we get to 100?
I think we should. Well, we keep talking about doing a live episode. Why don't we do the live one for the 100?
Yes.
Yeah, that would be good. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's an anniversary.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody will turn up.
Me and you'll turn off.
Just the vaccine betrayal continues, Nick. We had a listener comment. Nick, I can't remember what the name of this person is. Nick, you chose to put a little developed mRNA fluid in your body. I really struggle to get over this hurdle.
Well, you need to, because it's in me now.
And you're shedding it all over me, aren't you? That's it. So I just thought I'd bring that in as a kind of starter.
You need to let it go. You need to let the vaccine down there.
You only want to let it go because you took the vaccine. Everybody else, managed to avoid it. So that's the only reason you want to let it go. Everybody's talking about it.
They are?
It's getting out, yeah. Apparently cancer deaths in Japan
Yeah.
rose in 2022 and 2023 as a result of the mRNA shots. They were higher after COVID than before.
No, and part of that will be because people weren't getting treatment during COVID. So then there was bound to be an increase in cancer deaths because people weren't being treated and early detection in the COVID couple of years.
There's a thing happening in Canada at the moment. Save the Canadian ostriches because they're trying to kill them because they've got bird flu.
Right.
It's a issue. I wanted to talk today.
Am I an ostrich? I'm not sure the point of that statement was.
You probably got ostrich DNA. I wanted to talk about something because we often talk in this about crazy things happening with immigrants not being deported. And I realised that a lot of this is about human rights lawyers, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Who populate our country in, these kind of very ugly people who populate our country and work against our country all the time, and of which Keir Starmer's one as well.
Yeah, but that's because Tony Blair created the Human Rights Act and put it into British law.
Right.
So then that then allowed the explosion of human rights laws because it's now in British law.
Well, you may be pleased to know that this lovely Labour Party of ours has increased legal aid to immigration lawyers by 30%.
Of course they will.
It's gone up from £47 million a year to £61 million a year. So we're actively paying 60 million quid a year to people to work against our country.
Yeah, and do you know who was a human rights lawyer? Sadiq Khan.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know he was bright enough to be able to.
Yeah, but not a proper lawyer, only a human rights lawyer. Monkeys, you can train monkeys to do that job.
Don't call Sadiq Khan a monkey. You'll be arrested by coppers in a very short time. So here's some recent examples in the last week or so of our lovely human rights lawyers and what they've managed to achieve. A Pakistani paedophile was not deported because it would harm his children. A Ghanaian refugee married to a German as a result of European legislation was granted the right to live in Britain. But get this, she didn't actually attend her wedding to the German.
Was it over Zoom or something?
It was over Zoom.
Yeah.
So the ridiculousness here, first of all, she's Ghanaian. There's no reason for her to be here.
Yeah.
Secondly, she's married to a German, not an English person. And thirdly, she didn't even get loads of vetting.
Yeah.
But somehow that managed to get through the courts, through with a human rights lawyer, and she granted the right to live in this country.
And that's because in the human rights legislation, there's no distinction between being a citizen and native, English, British, whatever. Human rights are universal rights. So if it's good enough for you as an Englishman, it's good enough for that Ghanaian to claim the same human rights. If you've got the right to live in the UK, she has the right to live in the UK because these human rights. This is the lunacy of the situation.
Yeah.
That's why we cannot. So we see articles such as there was an Albanian who couldn't be deported because his son doesn't like chicken McNuggets in foreign countries, you know, like English McNuggets. Yeah. That really wasn't the reason why they weren't deported. That's just one of the 19 reasons they gave, hoping one of them would stick. And that's the funny one. But as long as you can claim you will be disadvantaged by being deported, then that is against your human rights. So that's why we deport no one.
There's more. A Portuguese, I thought I'd go non-brown. A Portuguese criminal was spared deportation because his kid might have autism. Why don't they just send the kid back with him to Portugal?
Yeah.
A Polish serial criminal had his deportation blocked after he claimed to be a father figure to his nephew. Not his child, not his own kid. Yeah. It's just like some random kid here. Pretend I'm your father figure. Yeah.
Mental.
Oh, it doesn't make any sense. And then a final one on the actual, a Ghanaian refugee, a Nigerian woman failed 8 times to get asylum in Britain, but she was granted it. You've heard this one, haven't you? She was granted it after she joined a terrorist organization in Nigeria.
Yeah, because now they can't deport her because they may kill her.
So she joined a terrorist organization. So she's now a known member of a terrorist organization. Yeah. Surely that would get her deported anyway.
It would have done 20 years ago, but now it makes you stay. The only way we change this is by changing the legislation. We need to repeal the Human Rights Act. We need to leave the European Court of Human Rights. All these things we need to do. Because it's too easy, and the government does all the time, it's too easy to blame the judges and to blame the human rights lawyers. It's not their fault. They're following the law of the land.
Well, it doesn't help that we're funding them 60 million quid, though, does
but
it?
If you was in trouble and you knew you'd done nothing wrong because that's the law, you'd want a solicitor to stick up for you.
Yeah.
That's what the human rights solicitors are doing. It's the laws that need changing, and it's the buck stops with our elected officials. Stops with 10 Downing Street.
There was quite an interesting case, and I'm sure you've read about it. It was headline news. A judge granted some Palestinian migrants the right to live in the UK, but under a scheme that had been put together for Ukrainian refugees.
Yes.
Now, why this is interesting is obviously it's wrong because they shouldn't be given the right for the UK. But Keir Starmer said it was wrong. Keir Starmer opined on it afterwards and said there was said it was a loophole that had to be closed.
It did. So the reason why there was a loophole is because of human rights. Because you cannot differentiate between a Palestinian and a Ukrainian because they've both got human rights.
They're all people.
They're all people. And if you then
humans.
And then if you say we can't have them because of this, well, that's now racism. So the whole system's a mess. This system can't be fixed. You would have to scrap it all.
Yeah. Is that what you do if once you gain power, Nick?
Well, there would be no immigration.
All right, okay.
Yeah, I'd stop immigration.
So what could you do? We're going to talk about immigration, but what could you do, Trumpian-like, if you were suddenly given the levers of power tomorrow? What would you do? How would you stop it legally?
Yeah.
How would you stop it immediately?
Well, illegal immigration, really easy. I would have the top of the border force, top of the army, top of the navy in my office. I'd say, you have 5 days. If anyone lands on our shores in 5 days' time, you're all sacked. That's how we stop that. That's illegal immigration. Legal migration, that's the Home Office. You get all of them in and you say that every visa that hasn't yet been issued is cancelled. It may take years for them to get it's all cancelled. Put a big sign on the internet, then you click migration in the UK, it just says closed for business. That's what you put on there. So that's how we stop legal migration. And I'm talking about all migration, at least for a few years. Mm-hmm. And then maybe after 2, 3, 5 years, we could say, do you know what? We need 2 brain surgeons. I'm talking about that limited. 2 brain surgeons we need, and we've got them there. But we need 94,000 nurses. No, train up British people to be the nurses you need. Start training them now.
Yeah.
I'd make it easier.
You've actually got 10 million people to choose from, haven't you?
I would remove some of the barriers. Nurses don't need to have degrees.
No, they didn't used to have degrees.
No. I was dating a girl when it came out that, because she was a bit upset that now she's going to have to get a degree, but she was applying to be a nurse at the same time that it came out, and she was very upset. So lots of things. I mean, there could be different gradings of nurses. So a nurse with a medical degree would know a lot more than a man or a woman. Yeah. Without a medical degree, we could differentiate between nurses. We already do that.
What would you do with people who are already living in the country who had a visa? Because they get the ILR, the indefinite leave.
Yeah, that's cancelled overnight.
So right, cancel the ILR. So once you cancel the end of the visa, they have to go back.
Yeah, anyone who's not born in this country, then the indefinite leave to remain is gone overnight.
Yeah.
And then we need to look at, are you working? If you're here on a 4-year visa and you've already worked 2 years, well, do you know what? That's fine. Work another 2 years, then you go home. We're not let them know straight away. We're not renewing your visa. So I'd let some people work out their visas and go home. And people who are economically inactive, on benefits, they would all have to go home straight away. And I would half benefits to anybody who wasn't a British citizen overnight. And we're looking at in a year time, 18 months time, to make that 0, make it uncomfortable to live here, so you go home. People are right when they say, Nick, you can't deport 10 million people. And you're right, we can't. The logistics is too much. What we can do is make it a country where you want to go home yourself. So you pay more tax if you're working. You're not entitled to benefits. You're not entitled to many public services. And eventually you say to yourself, I was better off in Nigeria. I was better off in Pakistan. I was better off here, there, everywhere. I'm going home. And we help them go home. And we say to people at a certain stage, we're at a stage now where we're going to start deporting people. And I'm just letting you know, you got a year. But anyone we deport, if you have money in the bank, capital, bought a house, we take the cost of your deportation out of your resources. So, and it won't be like $3,000 for a plane ticket. This is like, to deport someone, it might cost 70, 80, 100 grand when you add on all the people involved and So, yeah, you may sell your house for 3 million £. But when we deport you, we're going to take £200,000 off you for the cost of deporting you. But you've got a year to leave. Sell up and go home, and we take nothing off you. Those are the incentives we'd be giving people, and people would start leaving.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. The final one I've got under human rights lawyers, but I think it's just the stupid police people. There's a lady called Farishta Jami. I don't know if you've heard about her. So she was an IS terrorist, and the police took a picture of her.
I saw this, yes.
So they took a picture of her she's a terrorist, this woman. She was arrested by the police. They took a picture of her. Yeah. But she claimed she was distressed as a result of the fact that she was a Muslim, obviously, and distressed by that
she wasn't veiled when they took the photo and released it to the press. So the police then got Photoshop, put a veil on her, and then released that again.
Oh, was it Photoshop? I thought they retook it. They retook it.
They would have to drag it back in and I would Photoshop. They photoshopped it.
Anyway, all you can see now is her eyes. But she's a terrorist. Don't we need to see her face?
Aren't we again changing the law and the rules to fit minorities, like we've done with the Sikhs, where we crush elements. With all these things, we keep changing our rules because you're different, so we'll treat you different. I just want one law for all the people living on this island. And I don't think that should be controversial.
Just move on to immigration now. And we just talked about the ILRs. Did you know that between 2021 and 2024, 2 million visas were issued that would allow ILR after only 5 years? So the first of those are kicking in this year, basically. So those people who got those visas, if they're still here, they will soon get indefinite leave of return.
Yeah, they all do.
The definite what was not indefinite leave of return.
Indefinite leave to remain. Yeah, they have to. And then at that point, they can invite their families. So each one of them then invites 10, 12 people to live here.
Yeah.
So each one of those migrants is really 12 people could invite them. And same with asylum seekers and all this. You know, once they get indefinite to remain, they invite the whole families over. And a lot of those people they invite over are not even their families, because they're pretending to be an uncle because they've paid them to come over. The whole thing is a scam.
Apparently the cost of that, if those 2 million stay, will be 234 billion. Remember we did this thing about the cost of people, unskilled people in this country. There was actually an article about the tube, you know, the London tube.
Underground,
saying about how now it's a very, very unpleasant place to travel. I don't know if you've been on it recently. Very loud video calls, often immigrants or foreign people have their phones on. Have you seen this? They've got their phone.
I've seen it in Manchester.
Not offering seats, the smell of weed. And this woman was recounting a situation where a man bumped into her. She was only a little woman. Got really annoyed and then went to the opposite platform and was pointing across and saying, "I'll remember you, you fucking bitch," swearing at her. I mean, I think a lot of the reason these environments have become so unpleasant is because of immigration.
Of course it is.
The cultural norms of these people, they just don't understand how decorum and how to behave in a public space.
They're behaving exactly how they'd behave at home. It's not their fault. That's how they behave at home. You know, they have no decorum with using their phones. That's how they would speak at home. You know, smoking on the underground, smoking weed, not giving seats up. They've got no concept that in this country we're polite. And if you're a pregnant woman or disabled or old or even older than you, you would offer them your seat. You wouldn't put your bags on your seat when people are standing. You put the bags on your knees so people can sit down.
Yeah.
These are all alien concepts. But as
they used to happen. I remember in the 80s when I was in one, they used to happen.
That's because it was full of English people and British people. So people then, it was easy for them to follow other people's social norms because that's what everybody was doing. Now it's full of foreigners. The foreigners don't know what to follow, so they just do what they always do. The violence is something a bit different. That's not necessarily to do with culture, but that's to do, well, it is to do with culture, but that's to do with, we've got to a stage now where in the 80s or 70s or 80s, if you'd have said to a woman on the tube and been disrespectful or looked like you're going to be violent over it, you'd have been jumped by other men.
Yeah. I think
and trap beating out of you.
Yeah.
But now nobody will do anything because you're not the same as me. I look after me and my tribe. You're a different tribe to me. Plus, you're dark skin. I'm going to be called racist if I jump on you. I don't know if you've got a gun, a knife. So we've created the environment where antisocial behaviour and violence has become acceptable and normal.
Yeah.
Most of the people in Greater Manchester, when I was running for mayor last year and I was speaking to you about public transport, the number one issue people said to me who don't use public transport on why they don't use it was it's not safe. And that's Manchester.
Yeah.
London's a lot worse.
London's a lot worse. Rupert Lowe on Twitter, I saw a letter he published, was basically from a verified source, a teacher in an academy who was describing their academy was getting full of refugees from a local hotel or whatever. The state pays for their uniforms. It pays for their meals at the college as well, pays for translators as well. And this person was saying not only all that, but the other students are failing because of the inconvenience or the disruption to the classes because of these non-English speaking migrants. But they've been given education now.
Again, this isn't new. I saw this 20 years ago in primary schools in Manchester, where you have primary schools where 14 languages were being spoken, where children would turn up in primary school who couldn't speak English. So the primary school is spending all their time and resources on, 20% of the kids, 30% of the kids who don't speak English. And all the white kids who speak English are being ignored because we've got to get these kids who don't speak English up to a certain level. So when we bring in new problems, this isn't... It's a bit like in a swimming pool when you've got a lilo. You stand on one part of the lilo, the other part of the lilo jumps up, and that's another problem. So the more we have these problems coming in and we try to fix them, we're neglecting something else, which then becomes a problem. We're going on for decades and decades.
Apparently now in the hotels, the migrants leave their clothes in numbered bags, and a laundry service comes, picks them up, takes them away, washes them, brings them back in their numbered bag.
Yeah.
That's nice, isn't it?
Just like why they leave the windows open all day, because it's too hot because the heating's on all the time.
Wesley Winter, I think you're going to be interviewing him. He went down to the Crest de Court because I think there was a demonstration on, basically. And like I say, it was they were obviously paid activists with the same identical signs. I don't know whether, I think, is it Help Not Hate that buses them in or whatever?
I don't know. It's Hope Not Hate, it's Refugees Welcome.
Yeah.
It's it's Unison. Yeah. Union. Why unions? Yeah. This I don't know.
And they were saying things that he was speaking to the activists, the anti-racists, or whatever they call themselves, and they were saying very nebulous things. I thought, like, "Oh, we need to be a welcoming country. We need to welcome people from war-torn environments and look after them." And what's the answer to that, Nick? If somebody said that to you, what would you say?
No. If these countries want to be better, then their young men need to stay and build a better country. Attracting cowards to run away from their country and abandon their families and come here isn't the answer. If the third world wants to develop and be better, then they need to keep their best and their brightest, and they need to work harder and be better. Or they stay the way they are. Maybe how they are is good enough for them. Have we ever thought about that?
Yeah.
Do the people in Nigeria or South Africa think, "Oh, this is all right. I'm happy here. It's crap compared to what I see on YouTube, but I'm happy living here." Well, that's fine. We have neighbours next door to each other. Well, one has a nice clean garden and nice house, and the other one's a bit of a dump. But they're both as happy as each other. If you want, one wants to live in a dump, one doesn't. Yeah. And countries are exactly the same.
Yeah.
So let's stop stealing their people. It's a modern slavery. Stop stealing their people, leave them alone, and let them live the way they want to live. That's the answer.
And what's the answer to Britain? Should Britain, as a civilized country, should be doing this? Should be looking after people from less civilized countries and benefiting them?
Well, I'd say to that woman who said that at that demonstration, you sound like a white racist to me. So you're telling me that these black and brown people need white people to save them? So you saying we're better than them? Is that what you're saying? So they've come here for a better life because we provide a better life. It's a bit racist. You don't understand their culture. Honestly, I'm getting quite offended now how racist you are. And that's how we tackle that stupidity of those questions. We tell them that they're racists.
I think the thing that was really interesting, the Wesley Winter thing, when he was talking to the paid activists, the refugees can have my pussy or whatever they say, they were very aggressive. Even though he wasn't doing anything wrong, they were very aggressive. He was just saying, "Why are you here?" And then one was saying he's a fascist, and that, and they were doing the camera thing. Yeah. When he was talking to the sort of middle-aged white people over the road with the British flag, saying that they were really nice, really friendly, really open, explaining the problem to him very clearly. You could really see where his empathy lay, basically.
I've not seen the video, but let me ask you this question, because I think I can guess the answer. Were one of those groups heavily masked?
Yes. Quite a few of them had, or they called COVID. You know this.
Yeah. So COVID. That's not because of COVID. That's because it hides their identity.
Yeah.
So they're masked.
Yeah.
Where the other group of people are quite open and don't mind their faces being, because they know they're doing nothing wrong.
Yeah.
And and they're doing what they do. Anybody who has to hide their identity on those sort of demonstrations, for me, shows me that they're normally violent lunatics and don't want to be identified.
Yeah. Well, he was asked a few, he said, "Where are you from?" And they said, "Oh, I'm not around here." And he said, "Well, where are you from?" And the guys wouldn't answer. So They were being very aggressive, and then a couple of guys afterwards kind of went after it, basically.
Went them up.
Yeah. So I think it's very clear when you watch that who's actually got the moral high ground there. Certainly,
There will come a time where they're going to be attacked and have their heads kicked in. I can see that coming. They've been pushing and pushing and pushing. And all it takes is a football crew to decide they're going to start fighting this, and there's a demonstration. They're the ones who look like Antifa, and we're going to have a go at them, and then we'll see what happens.
I wonder if it'll come from football. That's an interesting point, actually, because probably one of the most organised kind of demographics is football. Is the football team,
and it's based around tribalism.
Yeah.
So the whole fighting violence is all innate tribalism. All it takes is someone to expand that, being Man U or Man City or Everton, and say, no, we're now fighting for the country.
Yeah.
It's a little jump.
Yeah. I think it is a little jump for the football guys, because I think a lot of them think that way anyway.
Yeah.
There's a very interesting video, and I think I mentioned it before, but I actually saw it for the first time, and it's in Ireland. And there's a young white Irish girl sitting next to an African migrant girl, and they speak to the Irish. I don't know what the show is.
Yeah.
They speak to the Irish girl first, and she says, "Oh yeah, I'm a single mum. I've got a little baby, 3 years old or whatever, and I was living in such and such. I couldn't keep up with the rent, and I'm homeless now. I'm living in a shelter." All right. And then they went to the African woman next door. She was smiling. She said, "Oh, I got a letter last week, and I'm really lucky. I've got a house of my own. I've got my own apartment now."
Yeah.
And with an African accent. Obviously, I'm not very good at African accents. Like that. And it's just like, and I don't know if they realise the irony of the situation. You had a native Irish single mum who was homeless, and you had a single African woman who'd just been given a flat by the Irish government.
How is that fair on any level?
It's not on any bloody level, is it?
But we've been talking about this for years. We keep importing people, and then we spend our money on the people we've imported, and they offer nothing to the development of the country. There's nothing wrong with these people. They're not evil. They're not inherently wrong. If I was, brought up in Nigeria, I'd want to leave that shithole and go somewhere better. Of course I would.
Yeah.
I don't blame these people, but as a native of this island, I have a vested interest in this island and a selfish reason for this island to do well. And we can't keep importing the third world. Because the question always is to these people, how many should we import? There's something like 1 billion people in Africa who'd like to move to the West. 1 billion. How many do we take? Because you might say 4 million. Someone else will say 20 million. Someone else will say 50 million, 100 million. Where do you start?
Yeah.
So there is no one will ever give you an answer about how many people we should take.
The red pill guy, you used to call him black pill guy, but you've softened.
If you come in red pill now,
you soften on it. So he was texting me. He's just been in Spain, and either he or somebody he knows was given a taxi by a Nigerian taxi driver.
Yeah.
And the taxi driver said, "Where are you from?" They said, "I'm from the UK." And the taxi driver, pardon my language, but I've actually sworn a couple of times, he said, "Your country is fucked, man." He said, I know Nigerians who just get in there. Criminals are getting into the UK really easily.
Happened for decades.
Yeah. And he said, and if they're kicked out, they just come straight back.
Yeah.
Basically. And he said, your country is fucked, man. That's what he said about England.
Mm.
That's quite sad, isn't
it? It's not shocking. Every now and again, you'll meet an honest Nigerian then.
We are doing something about it, though. We deported 47 people to Albania.
Nearly all of them voluntary.
And the jet to do that cost £1 million.
Yeah.
Were they all voluntary, those guys?
No, I don't know about all from what I've read, the vast majority of them were voluntary returns. Now, what does that mean? Well, that means they're Albanians who want to go home and see the family. So they then go to the government and say, yeah, I'll go home voluntary. Okay, thank you. Here's your full flight. And £3,000 for going. Everyone's got paid £3,000 for going. So they'll go home, visit the family, and they'll get a legal boat back. How stupid are we?
Incredibly bloody stupid. That is just shocking. We mentioned this before, but last year in France, there were 50 cases of criminal arson in French churches.
Yeah.
And we now believe this to be Islamists trying to burn the churches down because they're Christian.
It seems like that. I've not read much about it. It's also happening in Canada. But yeah, in France, it's like every week in France, a church is being burnt to the ground.
In terms of the fight back, you'll be pleased to know the halal lady, the one who
Yeah.
puts bacon and sausages, is carrying on regardless. I did warn her.
But not only just warn, it's wrong. It's wrong. I disagree with her doing that.
I don't think.
But again, if she gets caught, she's in serious trouble. Serious trouble. Wouldn't surprise me if she ends up in jail. That's how serious I think they will take it. No, seriously.
That's not.
No. You see what happened at the Southport stuff? Tweets got people 3 years in jail.
I tell you something. There will be civil war if that happens. Just talking about actions to save the world. Net Zero and Miliband is carrying on, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But there's some interesting stats coming out about Net Zero, and particularly the wind turbines. Apparently they are killing, the wind turbines are killing 3.64. This is a big number. I know you're good at numbers, but I don't know if you're good at this number, as good at this one. They're killing 13.64 quadrillion insects a year.
I know they're killing thousands of birds every year.
Yes, the birds as well. They're killing thousands, if not millions of birds. But they're killing 13.64 quadrillion insects. Those little insects just flying or getting hit by these massive turbines. What was interesting, when COP, have you heard of, the COP, which is COP1?
Yeah.
We're at COP26 now.
Yeah.
So COP26, COPs have been going since 1992. In all that time, they have not affected CO2.
I don't think I've heard.
In fact, the CO2 graph, and there's a great graph showing all the COPs at the time, the CO2 levels have been going up on a totally steady incline.
Maybe they're the problem.
So, yeah, there's a direct correlation between every time the CO2 goes up. The global coal use is set to reach an all-time high in 2024. Did you know that? And guess how much we've spent in subsidies in these 2 decades?
I've no idea.
$2.1 trillion.
For green energy.
For green energy.
No.
We have subsidized, all the governments around the world have subsidized the 2.1 trillion. And as a result of those subsidies, Nick, you'll be pleased to know, fossil fuel demand has plunged over those 2 decades from 84% of energy to 86%. It's gone up. It's gone up.
We know none of it's working. We've known for a long time none of it works. And even when something looks like it works, you look behind the scenes, it's powered by fossil fuel.
Yeah.
Like electric cars. Oh, they're great, aren't they? But what do you think you do when you charge it? The whole thing is a scam. It has been from the very beginning.
So Roman chariots in London, their average speed was 20 to 25 miles an hour at the time in Rome. The average speed of cars now in London is 8 miles an hour. So we've had
some Romans were doing better than us.
It's gone down. I remember London in the 80s. You could drive quite fast. You could get around London quite easily in a car. It's just horrible now in London. This ULEZ thing, I know this is something close to your heart, isn't it? Because you fought the thing that...
The Clean Air Zone.
The Clean Air Zone, didn't you? An Imperial College study found no significant difference in particular matter or parts per million of the
particles in the air that deem are poisonous. Yeah.
12 weeks after ULEZ was launched, made no difference whatsoever. Parliament has suspended. We're going to put a lot of heat pumps into Parliament. They've suspended the rollout because they're too noisy. You see, that's what Miliband should be getting involved in. You should be insisting that the heat pumps are put into Parliament, shouldn't they? And this is one of the worst things I read about Miliband and what he's doing. So Drax Power Station, now because of, net zero and trying to save the planet and stuff, they're not burning coal anymore. They're burning wood pellets.
Yeah.
Are you aware of this? It's called biomass. They call it biomass.
Yeah.
But apparently to do it, they've had to level hundreds of acres of forest in North Carolina. They've gone from being a beautiful forest. There's now nothing.
Then they ship it over.
Yeah, so they've chopped down hundreds of acres, ground it up into pellets, then ship it over on massive ships. Meanwhile, we've lost all that trees in there, and there's coal sitting there ready to be burned that we can't burn.
Yeah, crazy. Have you watched the film? I think I've told you this before. It's on YouTube. It's for free. Google it. It's a proper quality film. It's called Planet of the Humans. And it's all about green energy. They talk about biomass, show how it doesn't work. People think, biomass, it's green energy. They call it biomass because they don't want to say trees. And what's coal? Coal is just trees and vegetation. Not vegetation. Vegetation.
That's the word you're
That's been under pressure. It's still the same sort of stuff.
Mm. But the real positive now, and I don't know what your view is, apparently they found a giant gas field in Lincolnshire. Have you heard about this?
Oh.
Enough gas to power England for the next 2 or 3 decades,
right.
Basically. So there's now a dilemma, isn't there?
Yeah.
Because we've got Miliband saying no fracking or whatever, and they found a gigantic gas field in Lincolnshire.
Is it a fracking gas field? Or is it
I think there'll be fracking having to be involved.
Right.
So
they found fracking all over the north of England.
We got now sufficient in the North Sea, in the underground, to power this country ourselves, to make ourselves energy self-sufficient, which is what you described before. It's just there, Nick, waiting. So
we just need to tap into it. Because otherwise we rely on Russia and the Middle East.
Yeah.
So, dictators, corrupt regimes, volatile regimes that can fall or go to war at any moment. We're relying our life supply of energy on those countries.
Yeah.
If it was France or Germany, do you know what? They're stable countries, they're friends, they're neighbours. You could trust them to a certain extent. But we're going to trust Russia and the Middle East.
Yeah. And based on a lie as well, because we still do this idea that CO2 is destroying the planet is a myth that's perpetuated by the government, by the media as well. And the media still carry on, although I'm sure, can anybody be watching the BBC anymore? Is anybody watching?
Numbers are falling, but people still...
Did I tell you I got my threatening letter, my letter saying I'll be fine?
Yes, because you went on an iPad and looked at something on catch-up or something.
I can't even get into BBC Sport now because I've got to log in. So I refuse to log in.
There we go. Why do you want BBC Sports?
No, because it's good. It gives the results of the football.
Many places will give...
Yeah, no, I found another one. I found an alternative. But the BBC continues with its insanity and its agenda. So this is the BBC now reporting Trump, basically. So everybody else has been telling the truth about Trump. So BBC, Trump signs an order restricting gender care for young people. That sounds like Trump is a terrible man.
Yeah, it does.
What he's stopping is girls getting their tits cut off.
Yeah.
And people put on puberty blockers to make them sterile. But what he's doing is restricting gender care, Nick. That's how the BBC reported it. The BBC, migrants on edge as Trump ramps up raids and arrests. Migrants, not illegal immigrants. Yeah. Migrants on edge. So again, the way they're selling it all the time.
Propaganda, isn't it? It's just propaganda.
Yeah. BBC.
Because most people don't read past the headlines.
Yes, most people do. Trump victory is a major setback for climate action. Not fantastic news for the economy. We're going to become self-sufficient and drill, baby, drill. No. Trump victory is a major setback for climate action. No comment on the boost of the economy. And apparently after Trump was shot, I think I saw this guy when it happened, actually. Gary O'Donoghue, who's this big, fat, blind bloke. Right. Have you seen him on the Reporter?
Yes, yeah.
In fact, I can't have seen it because I don't watch the BBC, do I?
Well, he's obviously a DI hire because he's blind.
He said, immediately after Trump was shot, he said, after all this divisive talk, now maybe the rhetoric will stop. So he basically blamed Trump
For being
shot. God, they are unbelievable, aren't they? They're unbelievable. And Yvonne Ridley was speaking, this is the BBC, was speaking to Julie Hartley-Brewer. I think you saw this. And she tried to tell Julie Hartley-Brewer that the Jewish hostages had been treated well.
Because when they got given back, they got given goodie bags.
They could barely carry them because they were so emaciated.
They've been captured for like 14 months, 15, whatever. It's been well over a year. And we gave them goodie bags like they give out at the Oscars. She didn't say that bit, but that's what she meant. Like the Oscars do a goodie bag. There's some deodorant in there, and there's some skin cream, and a nice falafel. Oh, that'll come in handy.
Channel 4 have tried to destroy the myth that immigrants, that immigrants shouldn't be here, because they put out a show called Go Back to Where You Came From. I don't know if you heard about this, where they sent them back to Raqqa and Mogadishu. So they took British people back to Raqqa and Mogadishu to show them where the immigrants had come from, basically. And of course, at the end, they were all convinced we were wrong. We were wrong to say we need less immigrants here, because look how terrible it is in Mogadishu. Not that many of the immigrants come from Mogadishu, basically, but apparently one of the contestants, who was the anti-racist contestant, the good contestant, has posted on her channel, European Jews are a bunch of living scumbags. The British are as thick as shit and greedy. I'm ashamed to be British. And these people who are promoting immigration insist that refugees come here, even though they hate this country. Yeah. So in
the book I'm writing at the moment, I've just started 2 new chapters. One is about self-hate, and it's why do English people, British people, hate themselves? And I've started delving into that. So once I've got a better,
and that percentage has increased, hasn't it? I think they did a recent survey. Young people are not proud to be British, hate Britain, think Britain's a terrible country, and all that sort of stuff. It's getting somehow it's getting worse. Although I do think, as we said, there's a new generation coming through now that don't think that way.
Well, part of it will be education. We've taught our young people that the British Empire, the British people, the English people are bad, so therefore we can't be shocked when they think it's all bad. I'm sort of looking into the traitorous side. Why do certain people, go against their tribe and want to join another tribe? I'm looking at different levels of this. It'll be a good chapter when it's done.
Yeah, sounds good. EDI carries on, but I think I'm getting the sense, I don't know if you are, that EDI is dying a bit of a death now.
Yeah, it's done. It's on its way out.
There's stuff still happening. So the Russell Group, which is the top 5 universities, I went to a Russell Group university, is querying the curriculum now to be more inclusive for non-binary and trannies.
Yeah.
So that stuff's still going on. The Home Office is just funded.
How does a non-binary student, how do they do computer programming?
I don't know. It must be very difficult.
It's all binary.
Very good. That was a joke that was worth waiting for. Guidance funded by the Home Office says children who identify as animals and walk on all fours should be shown empathy.
Should be shown a good side of a belt. That's what they should be shown. Stop messing around, get up, sit down.
We're moving on to colourful. I wanted to talk about that earlier, the idea that why don't we start teaching strength, not weakness? Why are we teaching all the time about weakness?
Because we live in an over-feminized society where feminized traits are worshipped and any masculine traits are called toxic. So female traits are tolerance, empathy, caring, pink and fluffy, group hugs. That's not all women, that's what's a feminine trait. Masculine traits are personal responsibility, toughness, overcoming.
Stoicism.
And we now live in an over-feminized society. So those traits are seen as the best traits to have.
There are some positives on the EDI side. Seb Coe, who's currently running World Athletics, is planning mandatory cheek swabs.
Yeah.
For athletes to check they're not I reckon I could do that without a cheek swab. I reckon I know a man when I see one.
You go, ha. Oh, that's a man, yeah. That's all you do. Oh, you swab.
We don't need the cheek swabs. We just send you down there to...
Yeah, that's a guy.
But no, because have you heard about this Dr. Beth Upton case? He's a doctor. He's a bloke pretending to be a woman. But the trust ruled against the nurse who said she felt uncomfortable getting changed.
Yes.
But there's pictures of this guy, basically, and he just looks like a freaky bloke with long hair. Do you know what I mean? Or with a wig on. How can anybody possibly think it's a woman? It's I think it's incredibly easy to tell whether somebody is a man or not, apart from the old honk technique. You know what I mean?
Well,
especially a lot of these guys, they look a bit freaky.
A lot of them do, but there is some transgender women who if you didn't know, you wouldn't know. But that's not the case. That's not the point. The point is, as a woman, you should be expected when you go into an all-female changing room. Your expectation is there'll never be any men in there. Now, if you don't want to call it a female changing room, call it a non-binary changing room, call it a unisex changing room. Those women then have a choice. They can make a decision. But when you keep telling them it's a female-only changing space, well, you're lying to them because it's not. That's the big issue.
Lindsay Smith, who we talked about last week, so I attended a thing in Manchester where she was speaking. She's now launched legal action against the FA and the Rainbow Laces thing. And the rationale, which I think is excellent, is Rainbow Laces is political activity, and political activity is banned by the FA, so they should not be sponsoring it. Yeah. So I'm hoping she's going to be successful in that. I think she's being supported by the Free Speech Union.
Yeah, we'll see where they get to. But Black Lives Matter was a political.
Yeah, that's true.
People pick and choose what they think's political on.
Yeah. What I didn't realise, and our friend Barry Wall knows this lady called Jennifer Bilek. I don't know if you've heard of her. She reports on what's going on the trans side. There are billions being donated for LGBT causes all the time by a lot of very powerful people.
Yeah.
And those people, you may not know, include Warren Buffett, Jeff Bezos, Soros as well. And they're putting millions, and she's written an article called The Dark Money Behind the Trans Movement. But these people are sticking billions into the LGBTQ thing, basically. And that's why they're so prominent. Because otherwise these people would be sitting in a dark room not doing anything, wouldn't they? But they are funded.
We've always known it's been funded. Now, the question isn't, is it being funded and this is why it's popular? We know that to be true. The question is, why are they funding it? Are they true believers? Or is this what they funded because it was good for their business and their business model, for them to make money, or for them to get attention, or for them to be sat at the side of President Obama? So that's what I want to know. Why have they done it? Are they believers or are they not believers? If they're not believers, then like many of them, they'll now flip over to Trump.
Yeah.
And that's the end of it. If they are true believers, I think one of them has got trans children or something. I can't remember which one of those names.
I think there is, I can't remember who it is, but there is one guy who either is trans himself or has got trans kids or whatever.
I spoke to a lady a couple of years ago on a podcast, and she raised something about the LGBTQ plus, and she said, "Dick, what's the plus for?" I went, "Oh, I don't know," because most things come under queer theory, the Q. And says, no, she was plus. Plus is, she's got a theory, plus is the development of the human itself, such as cyborg implants.
Oh, yes.
It's that.
Transhumanism.
Transhumanism, because that's the next stage of where this is going to go.
Yeah.
But as she said, it was like, that makes perfect sense. And then she said, why do you think all these big online firms all have things with plus in it? Disney Plus, this plus, that plus. She said she thinks they're getting us used to the plus.
Oh, really? Of course, Disney Plus.
Yeah.
I watch Disney Plus.
Yeah, Amazon Plus or this plus, and Not that they're into the transhuman, but it's a way of getting used to you.
It's all part of the message.
It's all part of the message.
Who said the white liberal is the worst enemy to America and the worst enemy to the black man?
I'm guessing Malcolm X.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. That's interesting that Malcolm X was seeing that even then, and he was a...
When I first read
But
about Malcolm X 20, 30 years ago, I came out of reading Malcolm X thinking, he's a racist. He's an anti-white racist. As I've got older, I now realise what he's talking about.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That the white liberals are damaging the black people in America with this compassion, you know, all the things in Troika that. That's what he was talking about then, but I didn't have the knowledge then to understand what he meant.
I need to revisit.
I read him as being the anti-white racist.
Oh, he was railing against the white liberals and how they were basically, I suppose,
You're trying to help us
fatalizing.
by trying to control us. You're trying to help us by controlling us, but we don't need controlling. We need you to leave us alone, and we'll sort our crap out.
That's interesting.
That was his message.
I need to revisit that side of things and all that.
And then I remember seeing a clip the other day on Muhammad Ali being interviewed, and someone asked him about mixed marriages and relationships, and he went, "No, basically I can't remember word for it, but he said I'm against it. Why would you want to marry someone and have children with someone that's eliminating your race and your culture and your people? The more you mix races, the more you're damaging yourself." And then yeah, that's a bit I watched. I was like, oh, I've seen him say that before.
Oh, is it? So apparently there is some things are not racist. You may know because there's a female footballer called Sam Kerr. Have you heard of her?
Chelsea,
correct?
yeah.
She called the police.
I wouldn't call her a footballer. I think for Chelsea, she kicks a ball around, but it's a bit of a stretch calling her a footballer. That'll go down well.
No, but you know my views on women's football anyway, so I think I'm on your side on that. I mean, the most telling one is like the best female team took on some 15-year-olds. Do you remember that?
And got battered.
And got absolutely...
That's happened lots of times. It's not a one-off. That's happened lots of times where top-level professional female players play kids
Yeah.
and lose.
Yeah.
And the American team came over and played a Sunday League team last year sometime. And the Sunday League team battered them.
There was also two top-flight professional male players. Two played an entire female team. The disparity between them is unbelievable. But when you're watching it, it actually looks like they're doing some good stuff, but they're not.
Yeah.
Not against the quality of it.
I mean, women should be able to play football. I haven't got a problem with women playing football as a sport, to keep fit, to make friends, whatever. What annoys me is stop telling me it's a good sport. Stop telling me you're anywhere near like a 14-year-old boy who played. Stop that.
Yeah.
Carry on playing. I don't mind you playing.
Yeah, but they're pushing it. Of course, the media are now pushing it, aren't they, all the time? Where it's like I look at the daily, when I used to be able to look at the BBC Sport app before I was locked out. I always look at the matches and I'm like, and I'll see, oh, Liverpool, and then, it's women's football. So they started sticking it in on the daily matches as well. So it's spoiling that for me.
Now you've got women talking about male football.
That's the bit that annoys me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't see the logic to that. I saw a situation the other day, there were 3 women, no men, commenting on a male game. I can't understand that.
That's because the BBC and all these places think men and women are exactly the same, and women's football is just as good as men's football. But they also think men can be women.
That's true. Yes, so Sam Kerr called a police officer stupid and white.
Yeah.
And she was found not guilty of racism.
We would have been found guilty.
Yes.
There's no way I could have said that to a black police officer, you're stupid and black, and not have been found guilty. Not a chance in hell.
Yeah, yeah.
In a way, I'm glad she was found innocent because no one should be found guilty for doing such a thing. But it's the hypocrisy, it's a double standard, it's a two-tier system that annoys me. But yeah, a white person couldn't have got away with that. Not a chance in hell.
And I think another more staggering example of extreme racism, I don't know if you've seen the clip, but there were two Australian nurses.
Seen a little bit of it, yeah. This was a bit. This was not only crazy, but I can't believe they did it.
Yeah. I don't know who they were talking to or why it was taped.
I think it was a podcast or something.
But they were talking to a Jewish man.
Yeah.
And first of all, the male nurse who pretended he was a doctor said...
Not a dentist.
No, I think they were just nurses. First of all, he said, if any Israelis came into this hospital, we'd kill them, or we'd make sure they died. And then the woman, who was the Muslim, had the hijab on, came on, and she was so nasty and aggressive, telling him he was going to die and all that sort of stuff. And these are just revolting people, but happy to go on a podcast or a Zoom call, whatever, and say those things. Anyway, there's been a massive reaction to it, and now this woman is claiming stress and distress as a result of all the... Yeah. So she didn't seem to look like that distressed when she was threatening to kill the guy.
I think I'll be surprised if they keep their jobs and keep their license, whatever they were doing. It's a little bit like during Black Lives Matter, there was a woman in New York. She was American, but from Chinese descent, and she did a van walking through the park about white people this and I'm sick of white people, and we hate them and blah blah blah. And a day later or 2 days later, she was doing another video. I've worked all my life for my degree, and I got a fantastic job at Barron's and Barron's and Barron's solicitor, and they've just phoned me up and they saw the video and they've sacked me. And it was like, well, good for you. I'm glad you got sacked for being a nasty piece of work, and your new employer saw it and sacked you. But these people, they have
no shame, do they?
It's not a shame. These people think they are completely right.
Yes.
They think the only people who disagree with them are Nazis and Hitler and fascists.
Yeah.
Everybody agrees with me.
Yeah.
I cannot get into trouble for saying this.
Yes.
It's like saying Hitler's
I
a
think
bad
that's
person.
the point. I think that's the point. They are so much... And we're in an echo chamber as well, of course. But we hear what we... But they are so far removed from reality and so deep in their echo chambers, they start to believe that everybody is thinking exactly the same way. And then they just come out and say these things and think they don't understand the reaction, basically.
It's like saying Hitler was a bad man.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll ever get into trouble for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they say those things thinking, I'll never get in trouble for this.
Yes. Yeah.
And then they realise, your understanding of the world isn't the world.
Yeah, they are existing in a version of the world, and a lot of the left are like that. I think that and you do find, don't you, that the right, if you call them the right, are far more tolerant and accepting generally of people.
And that's because for a long time we've been the minority with no power.
Yeah.
If things swap and change, and then the right become the majority,
that's true.
Human nature will take over.
Yeah, and that's true.
And then we'll be just as authoritarian as the left are now.
I'm looking forward to that. Tom, my son, is working up in Glasgow at the moment. And as he was coming back on Friday, he stopped at a petrol station. And there was a guy there, an Asian guy, a big Asian guy. And his card or something had been rejected. And he was berating the girl, little girl behind her counter, white girl, saying, you're a racist, this is racism, blah, blah, blah. So Tom intervened and said, that's a very strong thing to say. You shouldn't be saying that. This isn't racism, this is whatever. So he shut up the guy. But I think it's an example. I mean, Tom's a big guy, as you know. So I think this is an example of people now getting on the bandwagon, the racism bandwagon, and using it so this guy's card had been rejected.
Been going on for decades.
And he calls it, and he was blatantly happy in the middle of the shop to shout at this girl, you're a racist.
Call it playing the race card, don't we?
Yeah.
But this, I remember...
It's race grifting, isn't it? Yeah.
East Manchester, my charity was doing some work in East Manchester. We went into this shop, Asian shop, chatting to the guy. I can't remember why we were there, what we were doing. But I was saying, about the council, I can't know what we were doing. And I was saying, like, the council's doing this today. If you want these things, the council, I went, no. If I wanted that, I would just phone the council up and say I was being a victim of racism. Every time I've done it, they've always helped me. And meaning He's never been a victim of racism, but when he wants something special, he calls that out to the council and he gets better treatment.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, yeah, you play the race card really well. And it works all the time.
Yeah.
That's why people do it, because it works.
Yeah. Well, hopefully that's something that'll shift as well. And finally, just to end on EDI, we talked about National Hijab Day.
Yeah.
And we all came up with a few ideas. One of our viewers came up with the idea of National Shag Goat Day.
Is that for Wales?
Somebody did say that for Wales, but it's a Muslim thing apparently. I don't know. National Shag Goat Day. So that's another one to add to the list of things we can do. And finally, just to say that I was laughing my head off when I rewatched one of the last episodes, because we were talking about them. Was it 100 grand had been spent on promoting trans pole dancing
in Serbia or somewhere?
I think it was in the UK, 100,000.
No, it was Serbia. It was America. Was it aid? It was Serbia, I think.
No, it was UK. We'd spent 100,000 promoting transgender and you said something along the lines of, yeah, because we all want to see dicks and tits spinning around. Oh,
we do.
I must admit, I was laughing for about 10 minutes, Nick. So you did make me laugh, which was.
Some people commented on that for the same thing. They said it made them laugh. One guy said, "I have to spat out my tea."
So I thought that was excellent. Nick Buckley, MBE, episode 51 of 82.
82.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed what you watched, please thumbs up, subscribe, and comment.
Comment, share, and have a look at our new membership scheme. That should be a button somewhere on the homepage. People can join now. Be members. You'll get extra footage, extra stuff, and give that a go.
Nick Buckley, thank you very much.
Thank you.